So, new channel update for various reasons. My birthday is coming up soon, so I've been treating myself a bit. Got some plans. Got some plans to make this a bit more of an active thing. And it is going to include the likes of me having purchased a new 4K capture card. And this was through eBay. Now, it was something that eBay itself just simply kind of pushed first and foremost, and well, I'm about ready to see how it ends up being. So, I'm just logging into my eBay account on my computer here. Oh, yeah, I'll just do this. Text me a freaking code with my freaking... There we go. Okay. Logging into eBay. So... just pulling up my purchase history. Because there's a couple things that I bought that I'm gonna make kind of a thing that I wanna do. This thing is, in the first place, I found it very important for the sake of just see if I can... Yeah, something like that'll be good. Alright. Whatever. Point is, I bought some stuff due to my birthday. So this is a game that I used to own, that I was wanting to cover for YouTube, whether that would be with the likes of just doing a Let's Play or doing the whole secular media breakdown thing, because I think that Infamous is quite the powerful biblical story when you look at it through that lens. But what is really powerful for biblical story breakdowns, for secular media breakdowns, is FullMetal Alchemist. And I'm pretty sure most weeaboo anime loving fools like me know about FullMetal Alchemist, and for a reason, because this is one of the most popular animes for a reason. It is heavily inspired by the likes of Nazi Germany, with a lot of the storytelling that it goes with, and it in general especially as a Christian, Full Metal Alchemist becomes so profound, it's not even funny. To where, I mean, when I first saw it, it became my favorite anime. Even though originally what was my favorite was what I personally started with, Naruto, which still is quite profound and interesting overall, but it's harder to get into, especially due to the fact that there is just so much of the story to go into to begin with, and I'm not exactly a fan of what they did with the newer generation with Boruto or whatever. It's not as engaging to me personally speaking as it used to be. But that being said, yes, there is still significance in the original series and Shippuden that, covering at least the story through, let's say, the Ultimate Ninja Storm games would be worthwhile, I'd say. But Full Metal Alchemist specifically, there's two generations of the franchise, which people love to just have kind of a war over what's better, what's worse. When, honest to God, I always appreciated the storytelling of both. The original, back in 2003, was such a powerful experience for me, as I blindly watched this out of nowhere with my dad on Netflix. I noticed that it was an anime. I remembered seeing that it was on Adult Swim, so I was like, okay, so this is not just for kids. This is genuinely with more mature audiences in mind. And because of that, it makes Full Metal Alchemist so much more engaging than your standard anime, sometimes, I feel like. And And honest to God, me and my dad bonded so much over Full Metal Alchemist that it means a lot to me because of those memories that I have with my dad. And what was such an amazing thing that I got blessed with recently, thanks to the Heavenly Father, is the likes of getting to be friends with Victor Mignogna, the voice actor of Edward Elric in the Full Metal Alchemist dub for the original series and Brotherhood. And he is definitely, in my opinion, one of the, like, really, really genuinely fantastic anime dub actors, I'd say. He clearly took the role of Edward Elric very seriously. He got very invested in it, and I appreciated his acting, because I also feel like some people are a little too harsh on anime dubs sometimes. By all means, I understand that there are some anime dubs that have absolutely terrible acting that can just make you immediately go, I think I'd rather just listen to the original Japanese actors who seemed to be far more invested in their roles. And I can understand that sometimes, because there are cases where I would rather, yes, listen to the original Japanese audio, but there are a lot of dubs that I think are more than worth giving a shot. Full Metal Alchemist is definitely one of them. I highly recommend also looking into the other anime that Victor Mignogna is a part of, such as Bleach, which he's one of the funnier characters in that one, and Bleach in general is a very, very engaging anime made for older audiences as well, which makes it easier for people to get into, for sure. And it's been around airing on Adult Swim to begin with. So there was never a situation where they were trying to censor it for kids. It was 100% always a dub that they were handling with the respect of the original story, and it makes Bleach's dub very engaging to watch as well. And it's also a very profound storyline as well. One that I do also think would be worth doing a secular media breakdown of eventually. It's just definitely quite the subject to cover for sure, but a worthwhile one. What else? So definitely, FullMetal Alchemist is just it's. I'm wanting to cover the original series, and that would also include the movie Conquer Shambhalaka's. While it may be very crazy in trippy in the story line itself, it is also such an amazing conclusion to that 2003 anime, I thought. And I loved it, and I bonded hardcore with my sister over it. And that alone, I hold that one close to my heart, and it has fantastic animation as well, to where Sacred Star of Milos is also worth buying as well, which is the second movie. Conquer Shambhala, though, that's the one based off of the original, or the one that's the sequel to the original series. I had to get this thing imported from Europe. And because of that, that is definitely hardcore. But if you're ever watching this, Vic, I hope some of the new purchases actually go to you still, at least to some degree. And part of why I want to have a interview with him on the likes of my channel, doing the secular media breakdown with FullMetal Alchemist, is the fact that he is also a Christian. So he understands these biblical themes as well as a Christian, and because of that, I imagine he'd be very invested in it, especially considering he played Edward, you know? And perhaps in the future the same thing could happen with stuff like Bleach, for example. As Bleach also could have such a breakdown as well if you actually lay it all out. And there's also Durarara that he was a part of, which was also on Adult Swim. And that one is definitely a very unique anime due to the fact that it has this this really good attempt at doing a what's the word I'm looking for here, the concept of doing storytelling with multiple characters, so having multiple perspectives that you're building the story around as it goes on, and it helps things that don't seem initially connected eventually end up being far more connected than you'd initially think. And because of that, it is such an engaging story too. And Durarara is definitely worth breaking down as well due to that. And it... And what else? So, also, I got the likes of this finally. So this is the 4K and 1080p 60 FPS HD capture card. and it can go in through USB-C. And my computer has USB-C ports, so it will probably be one of the best ways for me to connect it and for it to work. And I really am praying the best for this because I want it to end up being a good capture card, especially due to the fact that I want to be able to cover all types of games as well, because as a whole, video games, the art form itself has a lot of profound storytelling in it, and it is part of what makes secular media breakdown so engaging for me to do. And it's, I think, worthwhile as a whole to do that with practically all types of storytelling. Even the stuff that I might not be as invested in wanting to play personally, maybe? Because I won't lie, there's definitely a lot of profound storytelling in horror genre stories to begin with, but it is not something that I would personally be wanting to do exactly, just because I'm just not a horror person myself. More so, I have fun, admittedly laughing at people screaming like little girls, like PewDiePie. And hey, I'm hoping you're liking your the donation I sent you, dude. And I did that to help with your kid, and I hope he's doing all right, man. I'm really happy for you. That being said, this is one of the big subjects that I want to cover for Secular Media Breakdown. Metal Gear Solid. This franchise is mind-blowing with the profound storytelling here. And so much of it has to do with the fact that it's clear that Hideo Kojima, whether maybe he truly knows that they are real, legit conspiracies happening or not with certain things, the stories in Metal Gear is extremely profound. Like, it's not even funny, to where it is going to be one of the most engaging secular media breakdowns, easily. And I'm saying that because also I had an interesting situation on how I was exposed to Metal Gear. As to begin with, hold on just one sec. My dad and I got into another franchise before we got into Metal Gear that actually led us into getting into Metal Gear. So there's two franchises that I actually would like to cover with Secular Media Breakdown that are games, stealth franchises. And this might be the only physical copy that I own right now, which bums me out because I used to have them all. Splinter Cell. This franchise, I at least own them all on PC. Now, granted, Double Agent on PC sucks. Just throwing that out there for anyone who ever wants to get into these games. Just be sure that you avoid the ever living hell out of the PC version of Double Agent because sadly it is so over the top glitchy. It's not even funny that there's stuff like where it'll crash on you trying to save your game during a certain level, which makes it very, very hard to play that game to the end. And I only did it because I didn't want to freaking invest in getting an Xbox One or an Xbox Series X just to play the Xbox 360 version backwards compatible, due to the fact that the original Xbox 360 release seemed to be a bit rough around the edges sometimes. Still, at least with like a frame rate or something like that. At least from some of the stuff that I remember seeing. I mean, maybe the PS3 version ain't that bad. At least I would certainly hope not, if I were to try and invest in it. But, I played them on the PS2, and it was my first, it was my first time bonding with my dad growing up, like, hardcore over games, as he bought it for the PS2 as a game for him to enjoy, and he, under my mom's nose, let me play it since the beginning, and I just fell in love with it off the bat because Splinter Cell did this like magical thing for me as a kid where it helped me not be afraid of the dark, you know? And because of it, I love stealth games. I especially love Splinter Cell and the whole gameplay of using the darkness to hide from your enemies and just taking them down one by one and stuff like that is like one of my favorite things to do with Splinter Cell, easily. It's why I love having them here on Steam, because I do have, well, not all of them are specifically on Steam, as I got a lot of them for free thanks to the Ubisoft launcher or whatever, which used to be Uplay. Like, I got Splinter Cell 1, Splinter Cell 2, Splinter Cell 3. I do have Double Agent on Steam, which just sucks, sadly, on PC. I love Conviction, personally, and I think that that story alone has so much depth to it that deserves to be broken down with that story alone. And Blacklist, while I never got to play much of it, part of it is just the fact that I just wasn't as invested in the story for it, thanks to the fact that we were missing Michael Ironside. As there were aspects of me still kind of being okay with the new actor, but for the most part, it was just very hard to adjust without Michael Ironside in the role of Sam Fisher. Because when you think of Sam Fisher, you think of Michael Ironside, bottom line. That's just how it is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I don't do that to give crap to the actor who was put in a crappy position of replacing someone who was irreplaceable. You know what I mean? And because of that, though, thing is, I still got very invested in Splinter Cell. And Tom Clancy's stereotypical storytelling with his war stories, or with his brand's war stories, you know what I mean? It's very engaging because this kind of profound storytelling with war stories is what got me into Metal Gear so hardcore. And the first game that we started with may not have been a good place to start, I'll admit. But there was a reason why we started here. That was the trippiest freaking situation. Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. Yes, again, terrible place to start. But that being said, this was my first PS3 game. And not only was it my first PS3 game, but so this was my introduction, and this guy, Old Snake, specifically, looks like my grandfather, who is a real-life Vietnam War vet. He even smokes a sang. I shit you not. It was the trippiest experience ever, because during this time, graphics were getting so realistic looking that it was mind-blowing with PlayStation 3. And to see basically the install screen be Old Snake on loop freaking smoking, just like my Vietnam War vet grandpa, blew the hell out of my mind. And the story itself, off the bat, freaking got me wondering what the hell was going on with this series. Because this dystopian reality was so creepy. And it was also very, very trippy to see unfold. And because of that, I went out of my way to get the original Metal Gear Solid 1. And this I did on PSN originally, just getting it digitally. And while it looked a lot rougher, it was still such a profound game. The story itself, even as I was younger, it was still such a trippy story. Like, I was genuinely super invested off the bat. I was paying attention to all the cutscenes. I was especially super invested in the whole nanomachines storyline, due to the fact that I'm a vaccine injured kid. When my mom got me vaccinated when I was a toddler, I went from talking to not talking suddenly, and just simply being autistic. It really, it screwed with my health in ways that really genuinely was terrible. And the whole Fox Die storyline in this immediately stuck out to me because of that. And because of the Fox Die virus, it was such a hardcore story just there alone, with Naomi Hunter and Solid Snake. Naomi Hunter being this woman who just wanted to get revenge on Solid Snake because he killed a man who was basically her family. And because of that, she went out of her way to poison him before she realized that he was not a bad person, like her vengeance-filled mind made her think. And she ends up freaking doing that under the noses of everyone, including the people that initially got her to do the Fox Die virus, because initially it was going to be used to cause false heart attacks on people, just so that they could try and bury a bunch of conspiracy crap that was happening in the United States during this time. And it is such a trippy story just there alone. Genuinely, especially for me. Like, as someone who suffers from being vaccine injured, it made such a huge impact on me. And I wondered off the bat if the likes of Hideo Kojima created this kind of a profound storyline because he actually paid attention to these conspiracies too. And if so, I have nothing but respect for that man to freaking care to point out these storylines, to point out these conspiracies in this way. Because it just, it only gets crazier from there with Metal Gear. Because even the original Metal Gear is profound in its own way with this whole storyline of a commanding officer misleading you the whole time without you realizing till the very end that he was misleading you and trying to actually get you killed a lot of the times even. And it's very profound just there alone. And Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake only gets things even more profound with how the storyline continues in that one. And they are more pixelated games, no voice acting, but still, like, you can't help but at least have some respect for the depth of the storylines that was presented in these games. And then was this game, and then came Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. And I got that used at a at a thrift store for my PS2 because I so desperately wanted to play the next Metal Gear Solid. And the minute I saw it, I was like, yes! And I immediately snatched that thing up. Immediately snatched it up. And its storyline was such a trip, too. To such a hardcore degree that it affected me in yet another profound way. Because there's a lot of profound storytelling in just the original Metal Gear Solid for sure. But Metal Gear Solid 2 went so much further with basically conspiracies of the Illuminati being referred to in a special way in this storyline that is so deeply investing and crazy as hell to break down in as you get more invested in Metal Gear Solid. And then stuff with this AI, because that's the thing that creeped the ever-living shit out of me, was this storyline with the AI. As I was playing it late one night, getting finally to the end, and I just couldn't stop playing. It was way too investing for me to stop playing anymore. And thing is, it was referring to all these conspiracies that I grew up with my mom pointing out to me, and people not caring to talk about. And the fact that Metal Gear Solid was breaking it down in this storyline and in such a specific detail, I was like, it creeped the ever-living shit out of me. Especially when freaking the AI kernel was all, right, and turn the game console off right now in the middle of the night. I'm like, what the fuck? And I was like about ready to literally shit my pants that night. It was creeping the ever-living shit out of me. it is so worth playing, especially nowadays, dude. Especially with the censorship that's going on in the modern day. Metal Gear Solid 2 is so profound nowadays, it's not even fucking funny. Just overall, the freaking censorship that is going on now, it is worth experiencing even now. Guaranteed. And also, same with Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. And that one I wanted to play so badly because I kept on freaking wanting to see what Big Boss's story was like. Especially because I experienced the end of this without realizing what this story was like. So I was for years just wondering, wow, what the hell happened with him? And then someday, some guy just had a used copy that he just gave to me, and he was like a older brother, or maybe like an uncle to a friend of mine or something like that. And they just handed the disc to me. Sadly, though, it was super scratched up, so I never finished that original copy. Because it was the original release of Snake Eater, where you had the original fixed camera angles and shit. And it was still really engaging. But, for sure, that Subsistence re-release is so much better. And definitely, when I finally did, though, I actually did it through the 3DS version, which you can actually play with the Circle Pad Pro or a new 3DS model where you have the Circle Pad Pro built in, and you can turn it on to use that for your camera movements, and it just makes the game feel like Metal Gear Solid 4. And it was so profound, just on the whole, like caring to cover stories of, you know, old Cold War era stuff, you know what I mean? Old Cold War stories are very profound even still, because, I mean, we still even look back on, even though people give shit to Indiana Jones's fourth movie that was done by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg still, I definitely think it was a lot better than what Disney tried to do without them. And and in general, just Cold War stories can be very, very engaging. And for sure, the whole thing with the boss and Big Boss himself, where he was tricked into basically killing his innocent mentor, all because she was remaining loyal to her country all along, for them to get some secret funds that a secret society was hiding, like the Illuminati in that storyline. And that he freaking finds out that he freaking literally that his mentor was actually loyal all along, and that he freaking ended up killing her because that was just simply the mission, and he just never forgave himself. And that is just like such a heartbreaking story for that character, you know? It's part of what makes people love Big Boss. And that is why this is going to be one of the biggest things to break down on Secular Media Breakdown easily. And I'm probably also going to try and cover the likes of the original two MSX games. Also, try and cover Peace Walker, because Peace Walker is also a really good story too, I gotta admit. Also, I'll probably use emulation to cover the likes of Portable Ops, as I'll also probably, yes, buy a physical copy just to, say that I rightfully own it regardless. But basically, yeah, like, emulate that one too, to break that down as well. And Metal Gear Acid 1 and 2, those, I'm not really invested in those, just because I mean, I can enjoy some tactical role-playing game kind of concepts. Like, I can enjoy, from the few times that I've played Fire Emblem, I can say that I enjoy Fire Emblem. I also enjoy Valkyria Chronicles, which is also a tactical role-playing game. But it's doing the whole card system crap, and that's the part that I'm like, I think I'd rather pass after Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, honestly. Because that's, admittedly, the time that I freaking hate that kind of crap, personally speaking. As I feel like they could have maybe made a version of Chain of Memories where you didn't have to do the card battle system, and you could just like have the triggers control scrolling a traditional command menu, which is A to select your command and B to jump, and double tapping the D-pad for dodge rolling, and then also clicking down on both of the triggers in order to lock on. Like you could have done that on the GBA, and I think it would have still been pretty decent. Like obviously it would be hard for it to feel like the original Kingdom Hearts, but that's just because you're on GBA versus PS2. And I think Kingdom Hearts is going to deserve a Secular Media Breakdown too, just because there is a lot of profound storytelling in Kingdom Hearts as well. Because I'm admittedly bummed about how Kingdom Hearts 3's story ended up going with Xehanort, if only because he was such a hardcore psycho villain that was being built up in all the other games, that suddenly this idea that he was somehow an innocent man just made me go, I don't buy that for even a second. You know what I mean? And because of that, that's why I just wasn't invested in what they did with Kingdom Hearts 3, admittedly. That being said, though, I do think that Tetsuya Nomura had some pretty profound storytelling as well. That, Secular Media Breakdown could be interesting to do for Kingdom Hearts, for Final Fantasy in general, actually. As, yes, a lot of it is still very wicked, but my point is that there's so much in just the Secular Media Breakdown that we can do for Final Fantasy that would be mind-blowing. And Final Fantasy 13 alone would be huge in that regard. And it's a game that I feel like people were far too harsh on. Like, it wasn't perfect, but like, people were mad at it being linear initially, and I'm like, it seems like a lot of games are initially, especially a lot of Final Fantasies are initially. And so far, dude, the extra content at the tail end of Final Fantasy 13, I think is actually pretty cool. As a whole, it's a good game, and it's a story that genuinely breaking that down from beginning to end is going to be trippy. Whether that is just breaking down the original Final Fantasy 13, or then also going into the sequels 13-2 and Lightning Returns. And I also have Type 0, which I remember playing a little bit of initially, and I enjoyed the gameplay quite a bit. Where I'd like to see what the heck the story was like and how it connected to Final Fantasy 13, and perhaps what was potentially going to happen with Versus 13 when that was originally the plan. And then also I got Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2 HD remaster. I also got the original Final Fantasy 7. I also got Final Fantasy 7 Crisis Core. I got Dissidia. There's a lot here. Oof. Bathroom break. I'm gonna definitely need to do a bathroom break. Back. So, I also just now thought about it. The likes of Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. I'm thinking about possibly covering that version too. Just because I already am so invested in the original game's storyline, but at the same time, I understand why not everyone is invested in the Twin Snakes the same way that they are the original version. As the Twin Snakes kind of comes off a bit more like an action movie a lot of the times, with the tone of it sometimes. But at the same time, I don't think that's exactly terrible, especially with how action heavy MGS4 was, how action heavy MGS2 was, how action heavy MGS3 was. Let's be real, Metal Gear does have a lot of action in it, to where it's also kind of understandable that the Twin Snakes is like that, I'd say. And there's also a mod that restores the original game's soundtrack in the Twin Snakes. Even though it sounds like a good soundtrack and everything, but admittedly, I have too much nostalgia for the original game's soundtrack that I would kind of prefer to do the mod with the original Metal Gear Solid soundtrack. At least that's just me personally speaking. I mean, that's just how I feel personally on that storyline, as it's hard to not just be kind of a sucker for the original, at least. And I'm kind of thinking about also Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, because there's kind of a side of me that wants to cover it, and then there's kind of a side of me that doesn't really care to quite as much as the other entries, just because I kind of liked the ending that Raiden's character got in Metal Gear Solid 4's ending more, to where I'm not as invested in his storyline for Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, personally speaking. But I mean, I might still do it. It'll just depend, I guess. Honestly speaking. And definitely too. I'm just thinking of what else. Because part of me kind of still wants to cover Metal Gear Solid 5, but at the same time, Metal Gear Solid 5 is still very. It's hard to be invested in it quite as much as the past games, because due to the structure of the game, the storyline is just not as engaging, simply, but where a lot more of the game is just simply doing a bunch of missions, you know what I mean? To where it kind of just makes it very repetitive in comparison to how engaging the storylines of the other games are. So it'll just depend, I guess. But I might end up covering all of Metal Gear Solid 5 with the rest of it. I guess we'll just see. I do know this. I am looking forward to the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. Hardcore looking forward to it. Due to the fact that we're going to hopefully have them not pull off kind of the crap that we see in the Resident Evil remakes, because that's the only thing that I'm a little bit worried about. Not that I dislike what the Resident Evil remakes has done in with the gameplay, but it's more about the fact that the Resident Evil remakes are taking out content that was originally in the original versions that you got as like unlockables for completing the game and this, that, and the other, and selling it back as DLC. Thing is, this is still how I feel about the greed of modern gaming. And it's part of why I still have this desire to do a franchise under this Night Ninja character that I've named my channel after, that I've named this storyline that I have in mind after, as it was inspired by superheroes hugely, and a lot of that just has to do with the fact that like I grew up being a huge Spider-Man, just super fan, and you know I also loved Batman, and because of all of that, I have this this love for the superhero concept, if only because it had this positive influence on me growing up, giving me this sort of positive role model growing up. You know what I mean? With the likes of Spider-Man and Batman and even Wolverine. Even though he's pretty freaking hardcore gnarly. Of a lot of Marvel characters, he's one of the gnarliest easily. But my point is, Night Ninja was inspired by that love for superheroes, and I want to eventually make this a storyline that also ends up being a game that I'm going to use to basically help spread the gospel, as I'm going to make it a more direct truth about the biblical truth. About the biblical truth being a active thing to take note of. And with that in mind, I would also be trying to make games that would be so content filled that I would be going out of my way to try and embarrass the likes of these other game companies now, by trying to make it the more content filled game that is going to actually respect my customers, unlike the frickin' douchebag mainstream game companies like EA and Activision and Ubisoft and all that. Even though I used to love these guys, which is the thing that sucks about modern gaming, admittedly, you know? It's part of why I actually really respect Critical Nobody, and I've went on my way to send him a donation. I hope I'm pray he's doing well, because I appreciated some guy who was into Splinter Cell as much as I was, you know what I mean? And it's part of why I'm hoping I'll eventually get to check out the Splinter Cell multiplayer as well. Just because I never got the chance to do that back then, since I was playing on PS2, and in order to do PlayStation 2 online, it's honestly a whole thing to do that, you know? But I've heard many good stories about how Splinter Cell multiplayer is still very fun and how you can still play it on PC. And I would probably be going out of my way to get a jailbroken PS3 for the sake of accessing Metal Gear Solid 4's online again. Because the only thing that sucked about it when it was actually active was that obviously they were doing a bunch of microtransactions and shit, and some pretty expensive shit just to customize your character and make your character feel more unique to you. And because of that, though, if you were to access this on a hacked PS3, obviously, by default, thanks to that, you're not dealing with any microtransactions like you were in the original release of it. So it would make it far more engaging as well. And, you know, Metal Gear Solid, it has really, really engaging stealth gameplay that is hard to beat, you know what I mean? It's a huge part of why I'm also pumped that I'm going to be playing these for YouTube soon here. And it's due to why I went out of my way to make sure I got the capture card here, because I wanted to be able to cover all different kinds of games potentially over time. And I'm also treated me and my dad to these because we loved playing the demos for these back then. And I wanted to finally have all three of the Motorstorm games and probably play them sometimes for YouTube. I mean, they're still just dumbfoundingly fun to play with just amazing soundtracks, if you ask me. And what else? So I'm just making sure that I'm thorough with my update here, since this is all very important to cover. The Max Payne games, I might just play all three of them for YouTube, just because Max Payne is, like, honestly, I think so worth covering for YouTube like that. At least I think it could be. You know, that's just how I feel. But yeah, let me load up my Steam here, because I got all the Batman Arkham games, and I'm pretty sure I remember playing Arkham Asylum and Arkham City for YouTube back then, since I have it on PS4 with all the DLC. But Arkham Origins I have yet to play, and same with Arkham Knight, which I hear a lot of good things about both. So I'm pumped about getting to do that eventually. Also, the BioShock remasters, and BioShock 2, I remember hearing having multiplayer, and that sounds really fun to check out eventually, just because BioShock was like one of those super profound stories in games. I thought it was so good, to where it is definitely worth doing a secular media breakdown of. And also, Call of Duty Black Ops and World at War. These stories definitely deserve secular media breakdowns, both the campaigns themselves, but also Zombies, as Zombies actually has quite the interesting plot when you actually break it down, and it makes it very, very engaging. But thing is, I was never super into first-person shooters otherwise, personally speaking. Admittedly, I was just always more into RPGs. Even though I can still enjoy shooters, it's just I feel like shooters tend to be what people default to, which makes it not as engaging to play as RPGs for me because of that. But usually when they're like shooters that has RPG elements like Borderlands or Bioshock, it's far more engaging by then. I don't think I'm gonna end up doing stuff like Skyrim or Fallout exactly though, even though there might be significance there still. But yeah, there's the Final Fantasies. Halo. Honestly, this one would be a lot to cover, but it would be fun to do a full playthrough of the original franchise up to Halo 4, because I'm not sure I'm ever going to end up touching Halo 5 or Infinite, personally speaking. Just because when Halo 5 came out, the storyline really just lost my interest completely speaking. Now, Kingdom Hearts I might end up doing secular media breakdowns of. I mean, I at least already played them for the channel before, so really I'm, for the most part, right now, if playing them at all, I'm playing them just for the sake of finally finishing the likes of critical modes, which are very engaging, but also very hard. Yeah, Lightning Returns, I'll eventually cover that as well with the rest of the Final Fantasy 13 games. But yeah, I got all three of the Max Payne games. These guys, so good storylines. It's not even funny. And they will be amazing to cover in secular media breakdowns. Guarantee you. Same with Mirror's Edge. And I have both the original and Catalyst on PC. And I originally had Catalyst on PS4, and I do still own it on PS4, and I'm probably going to keep it just because I do like these games and their storytelling. But this one is a little bit harder to get into in comparison to the original Mirror's Edge for me, just because it's definitely a lot different from the original. Personally speaking, it throws me off a lot. Saboteur, I'm still going to be playing more of that as time goes on, because this game is very fun and has quite the profound storyline as well. Might also sometimes stream that with friends just for fun. You know, good old Star Wars Battlefront 2. The good old days of, like, real good Star Wars. And I admittedly feel like people were far too harsh to George Lucas back then, especially considering what Disney has done to the Star Wars franchise now. I feel like people need to give George Lucas an apology for giving him such crap back then. Because, no, the prequels weren't perfect, but I damn sure didn't think they were bad. As a matter of fact, I enjoyed them plenty. Even with stuff like Jar Jar Binks or young Anakin Skywalker, that never bugged me one damn bit. So, yeah. I'm sorry, George Lucas, that you got so much crap back then. I just feel bad for him, and I'm sending my prayers to that guy, because I appreciate the the bonding that I got to do with so many different people thanks to Star Wars, for the generations that it bridged for people, you know what I mean? Especially with the games too, because Star Wars games are so good. The stuff that came out before Disney took over was some of the best games of all time, easily. Like, George Lucas clearly went out of his way to make sure that LucasArts did damn good with their games. Honestly, it's what makes me miss the likes of two games that I think I'm actually gonna get for the sake of for the sake of the channel. Mercenaries Playground of Destruction and Mercenaries 2 World in Flames. These were some really good games by Pandemic, and I'm just bummed that they're gone too. Because playing specifically the likes of the Battlefront games again, of course, and also playing the likes of the Saboteur. They were such a talented bunch of guys, and I'm praying the best for each and every one of those guys for making some of my favorite childhood memories, you know what I mean, man? At least that's how I feel. Thing is, I feel like secular media, when you do break it down, there's a lot of profound storytelling that you can reflect on. That, as someone who has been given crap for being a so-called conspiracy theorist and crap like that growing up, it's what it's there's significance to going out of your way to cover secular media, you know what I mean? And it's why I find this secular media breakdown concept to be something that is going to be very impactful for people. Because when people are willing to actually have those self-reflections on secular media and what is probably actually going down in real life, it's far from just no big deal. It becomes very, very, very engaging, very investing, especially when this generation, bonds over media like this so much in the first place. It's why this is not just no big deal to cover this kind of stuff. It is why this is actually far from no big deal, but is actually very, very, very important to do. Bottom line. And I think that's more than fair. And, you know, I just wish that, also I could somehow figure out a way to get this thing recorded on my computer, my PS Vita, just because, my Vita is, like, one of my favorite handhelds of all time. This thing's so much freaking fun, it's not even funny. And you can get it to connect via Bluetooth with PlayStation 4 controllers and whatnot, which is super awesome. So then you can just play almost anything on it that you'd be invested in playing. But yeah, also I bought the Tron movies digitally because I want to actually cover those for Secular Media Breakdown, as well as Tron is super profound, and the creator himself said that a lot of the original movie's storyline was inspired by biblical stories, which makes it very impactful as a Christian to watch the original Tron alone. And Tron Legacy is such a good sequel. It's not even funny. Like, it is so, so, so investing. And I also actually have access to Tron 2.0 on PC, which is actually a pretty good game. It's a unique storyline that was kind of like a different alternate timeline before Tron Legacy became a thing. But then I also got this guy on PS3, Tron Evolution, which is the prequel game to Tron Legacy. And it took me forever to find this, but I am so glad I did, because this so gonna be worth doing a Secular Media Breakdown for Tron. It is so gonna be worth it, because sadly Disney just doesn't realize the love that Tron has, which is a bit of a shame, but at the same time, at the very moment we are living in with how Disney is now, it's probably a blessing now. Just because, like, the kind of crap that we'd possibly have Disney end up doing to the franchise, if they weren't, you know, uh, I'd feel more invested in them if they weren't pushing all the super woke BS. And I don't say that to be sharing any type of like hate towards people who are gay or homosexual or so on or so forth. As I've had many people over the years as friends who were homosexual, and not once would I ever harbor any hate towards such friends. It's why I am a bit bummed that like in this day and age they just do it more so to basically kind of go, stop trying to control our lives kind of thing, stop trying to control how we live our lives kind of mindset, which to some people can be understandable, and it's why they are going out of their way to you know, I think I see something that I'm gonna end up wanting to do though for secular media breakdown as well. The Jack and Daxter series. These stories are trippy, dude. And because of how trippy they can be, they'll be so worth breaking down on secular media breakdown. Because Jack and Daxter, as I'm thinking about it, it really would be quite a profound series to cover as well. And same with actually Sly Cooper, because I'm already pointing out how I'll want to do Infamous, and with good reason, because Infamous has a very, very impactful superhero storyline with Cole McGrath in just the original two on PS3 alone. Oh, so good. But also, Sly Cooper 1, 2, and 3 back on PS2 was some fantastic games. No joke. so worth playing, so worth enjoying, and some really good storylines as well in those games for being storytelling that was aimed more at kids. Like Sucker Punch did a good job, I'd say. And what else? I hear people mention the profound storytelling of Jack and Dax. Well, I mean, because Jack and Daxter definitely has profound storytelling, and by all means, I'm including it because of that. But specifically, Ratchet and Clank. So, I barely played too much of the PS4 game, the first one, just because initially I thought it was actually a full-on remake of the original PS2 game, and that's why I had a desire to want to play it initially. But then I was starting to get all kinds of, oh, this isn't the same game, and it not being the same game kind of it killed my interest, admittedly, back then. And because of that, I went out of my way to just simply shrug it off and just I never went back to try and look back into Jack and Daxter because of it. But the the storytelling in Jack and in Ratchet and Clank specifically, I'm sorry, I get it all mixed up because, let's be real, when you're thinking of the PS2 generation, three main exclusive franchises come to mind from Sony: Jack and Daxter, Sly Cooper, and Ratchet and Clank. So, due to that, it's Ratchet and Clank that I don't have really any experience with, but I've heard how profound the stories are. As just the original, from my understanding, is like a story of these guys basically holding a bunch of planets ransom, as they're gonna basically blow them up and then use their parts to make a freaking some sort of like stitched together planet just for being like an amusement park or something like that. At least that's what I remember hearing the plot being generally about for the original Ratchet and Clank. And that's super morbid for a game that's supposed to be for kids, you know what I mean? Like, when you really think about that, it is hardcore, dude. That being said, it's still very, 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 very engaging. I'll give them that for sure. And that was Insomniac, the guys who made the original Spyro the Dragon games back on PS1, which is cool. And I enjoyed the original Spyro games, so you know that would be probably fun to enjoy, personally speaking. Same with the likes of what else, like just there really is a lot that I could end up covering here, and the more that I'm breaking it all down, the more that truly secular media breakdown could end up going far. And I have a lot of these Star Wars games for a reason. I've played Dark Forces 1 and 2. These games are so good. Oh is so good. And the character of Kyle Katarn is one that I'm bummed they decanonized, because his story is so good in Dark Forces, it's not even funny. To where it felt very disappointing when they replaced it with Rogue One, even though it was one of the better Disney movies. But point is, I have his storyline right here. The Knights of the Old Republic games that I do need to eventually really, truly cover. Of course, Star Wars The Force Unleashed 1 and 2, I got both of them on here. And they are so good. And I'm also kind of bummed that they decanonized, what's his name? Starkiller. Because his story was very, very engaging for me too. What else? Portal. Portal is very morbid too, but also a very engaging game series, and I'd say is worth covering as well. I do have Resident Evil 4 right here. It is honestly worth covering the Resident Evil stuff for sure, because it's also a very, very messed up storyline, dude. That deserves to be broken down for sure. Sonic the Hedgehog could have that to some degree sometimes, but I'm not sure I'd care as much to cover it for secular media breakdown, even though I can still enjoy Sonic the Hedgehog as just a fun game. Valkyria Chronicles, though, this for sure is quite the storyline too, and is very impactful to experience and break down. So Valkyria Chronicles, and I also got the complete edition for Valkyria Chronicles 4. I also have Valkyria Chronicles 2 digitally for my Vita. I also will just have to apparently something about a mod to patch Valkyria Chronicles 3, because it apparently never actually came to the United States officially. And that's a huge bummer, if only because these stories are so engaging that it blows me away that they didn't release the third one in the United States. And again, maybe having to do with it being a PSP game, and the PSP not being as popular in the United States as it was in Japan. But I just think people didn't appreciate it very much, admittedly, like I did, PSP specifically. I have started to cover the likes of the Tomb Raider games, as I got the remasters for the original 3, and I pre-ordered the remasters for the sakes of games 4, 5, and 6, because the remasters for 1, 2, and 3 is amazing so far. To where I'm looking forward to seeing what they end up pulling off with these remasters, especially as people gave a lot of crap to the PS2 entry when it first came out, and with the ways that they tweaked the original game alone with its remaster, that could end up being a much better experience now, I gotta say. And, still a very engaging storyline akin to something like Indiana Jones, which is already very engaging in of itself, especially when we're talking about the Indiana Jones stories that were actually connecting to the likes of biblical stories, like the biblical story of excuse me, the Ark of the Covenant. That alone is it's an interesting story, especially because there's actually some conspiracy theories out there claiming that that actually happened, that someone did find the Ark of the Covenant, and that it is actually being held in Area 51, supposedly. And if that actually is the case, probably for a reason that they're hiding it there. Because when you're especially a Christian, the likes of those biblical stories in Indiana Jones are so impactful, it's not even funny. Whether it is the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, or if we're talking about the Last Crusade with finding the Holy Grail, because that one is hardcore too, man. And that also being said, I also am invested in some of the Indiana Jones games. Like, I have personal experience with the game Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine, which is kind of a Tomb Raider clone. And a pretty damn good one, actually. Like it plays very similar to classic Tomb Raider, and in ways that feel very respectful to the influence Tomb Raider had on it, and the influence that it had on Tomb Raider, kind of thing. And it is definitely where it is very engaging as a game still, and you can get it on GOG. So it's worth giving it a shot, I'd say. And not to mention, I think it's also on Switch too, digitally. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Got a lot of uncategorized games. Deus Ex, I've heard a lot of people talk about the significance of these plots, and I'm down for covering these for Secular Media Breakdown as well, as I hear people talk about the significance of their plots. And I'm looking forward to eventually giving them a shot. I also recently bought this. I'm not sure what it's actually going to be like, but I'm looking forward to giving it a shot eventually. Also recently bought this and played some of it with my friend. It was a fun time. Definitely, if you're into skateboarding games, this one is worth getting for sure. If you're already like a fan of the EA skate games, or the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. Yeah, I think that's actually going to be about it, because The only other things that I could think about covering for the channel this way, uh, of anything else that I have, it's just nothing else is really exactly sticking out right now that I feel the need to point out and go, yes, I'm going to be covering this eventually. I'm pretty sure I've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to in this update, because I wanted to have a channel update on the kind of stuff that I'm going to be doing soon here with Secular Media Breakdown, because this is for sure it's something that I feel like God has put on my heart to do for a reason, Secular Media Breakdown specifically. And because of that, I'm putting so much effort into trying to figure out how I can cover as many subjects as possible this way. And just Metal Gear Solid alone, this is going to be so engaging to break down. It's not even funny. All of them, genuinely. Well, I mean, because I will at least say I've heard of the stories from Metal Gear Acid, and they are definitely trippy. It's just the whole card game thing that is going to be hard for me to get into, personally speaking. So that'll probably be the only thing get in the way of me giving it a shot, personally speaking. That being said, for anyone watching this in the future, thank you for watching, and God bless each and every one of you for supporting my channel, and may God bless this endeavor in doing Secular Media Breakdown, as I really do think that it is going to end up helping a lot. And thanks to that, I feel like I'm going to end up helping people realize what's going on in the world a bit more. Because when you realize that biblical themes are all around you, because biblical themes are literal reality, like literal history, it blows your mind. It genuinely blows your mind to its very core. Because beforehand, I was at least engaged in all these similar themes that was seemingly from the New Age belief. And to a degree, because I was being raised to think that that was the significance, that was what was the way that the universe was working. And meeting Jesus Christ was the greatest thing ever for me. Getting to meet him was huge. Because he cared about me despite where I've messed up in my life too, which meant a lot to me. Bottom line, I'm just being real there. And it's thanks to that I'm doing my best to try and actually be the best Christian I can be. I'm definitely not perfect. And if I'm ever trying to tell someone why you need to care about avoiding sin, it isn't because I'm just going to be some hypocritical asshole who thinks I'm better than you, I'm above you. No. It's because I realize the truth of what's going on. That's all. And I'm only praying that as many people as I care about, as I love, and that I'm always sending prayers for understands that is all. And secular media being able to realize that this is the significance in secular media this whole time. Not these new age themes, but the biblical themes that is pointing towards literal history. It's going to be impactful for a reason. And I'm also still wanting to make games. Not only do I want to make Night Ninja, but I honestly want to make a Holy Bible game that is going to be something that people can look towards as a good Holy Bible game, a good example that of a way to get invested in this story, in the history, for a reason, because definitely we've got some bad examples out there, like the zoo race. First time John Tron showed me that, I was like, what the hell am I looking at? That was exactly my reaction when I first saw that. I was genuinely all kinds of, what the is this? Because it was hard to take seriously. It was hard to realize that it was pointing towards literal history in the first place with the Holy Bible. Because what got me to realize that was thanks to Lee Strobel's The Case for Christ, was his journey in realizing that Jesus Christ not only literally existed, but he died on the cross for our sins. And that literally the Holy Bible is history. And it blows your mind, because then you're also like, oh shoot, so giants actually existed? Dragons actually existed? it's a whole new kind of significance. And it's what makes this so engaging. It's why secular media breakdown needs to be a thing. Because I'm sure a lot of people, even in the new age, just don't realize that this was all claimed as literal history, because, you know, even these seemingly fictional creatures actually existed. And conspiracies need to be touched upon, because I understand being afraid of these conspiracies being legit, and having to not trust your government, having to not trust Hollywood, having to not trust so on and so forth. There's a lot of the secular a lot of these secular beliefs about conspiracies being not okay, just because, let's be real, we're just afraid to face that a lot of these conspiracies are actually legit happening. But thing is, we need to be as wise as a serpent and as harmless as a dove. And because of that, that is why we must pay attention to conspiracies, because we need to be prepared for whatever the enemy is planning against us. It is why I'm even also sending my prayers to President Donald Trump. He is clearly not some perfect person, but he seems to actually be caring to do the right thing for once as a president in my lifetime, and that means a lot to me because it seemed like the only president beforehand that I knew of that seemed to care at all was John F. Kennedy, and he got killed outright. I mean, and let's be real, Donald Trump was almost killed multiple times now, which is important to take note of, because they're clearly not happy with what Donald Trump is actually doing for the good of this country. I genuinely believe that. And it is why prayers to Donald Trump and his family and those working with him on his side is very much important, especially for the United States, for the sake of this country being treated better, being ran better, being ran by people who aren't just going to be a bunch of freaking puppets, who are just going to freaking lead this country into everlasting war and shit. Because that, I'm sick of dealing with the United States, personally speaking. That's just me, honestly. It's admittedly part of why Metal Gear even still makes such a huge impact to me. You know what I mean? And it's why this is all going to be touched upon in Secular Media Breakdown. And God bless you all, to anyone who is supporting me through this, because in the first place, this was definitely quite the transition for me. I went from being a New Ager to a man who became a born-again Christian, who Jesus reached out to in my own dreams, and gave me a dream prophecy to prove to me his power, and to tell me, I did this for you, Travis. I may not be a perfect person, but Jesus is scared to reach out to me. He's scared to be patient with me. He's scared to even keep me alive through all my seizures that I've been going through for quite some time. And I have nothing but appreciation for the Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ, his Son, who died on the cross for our sins. And it's why I'm not going to give up on being a Christian. Being a Christian was the best decision I ever made in my life. And whether people will believe that I am being genuine about this journey or not is up to them. I know I'm being genuine, and I know at least God will always see that, and I appreciate Heavenly Father for being the one who can see it. And God bless each and every one of you who support me.